Hello, my name is Hal Kerfus, and I'm here with my good friend and colleague, Norman Urquhart, and we're going to talk in general terms about commercial real estate, whatever comes to our head, and hopefully it'll be interesting to the audience. Norm, welcome.
Thank you.
And perhaps you could tell us something about yourself, Norm, and this is the first podcast for you, and so I'm sure the audience would like to hear what you are about.
No, thank you, Hal. So I worked at IBM for 28 years and retired from IBM. I did an international assignment. I worked with international software vendors overseas, helped them to use IBM's plumbing, if you will, their infrastructure, and we would then add that to their applications and then sell the integrated solution, or they would sell the integrated solution to their end user customers. So I did that for a number of years. Was happy to retire, collecting my pension. And I said, well, what am I going to do now? Because I still wanted to do something else. And rolled across one of our old friends, Frank Caparel, who introduced me to the organization and said, well, maybe you should be doing residential real estate. And then after talking a number of times, said, well, you've been in business already, so commercial would really be the avenue that you should pursue. Mm-hmm. And so now I've been doing this for 12 years and really enjoy it. In fact, as I was looking at some various articles, one of the things that I thought that was really interesting, kind of a little tidbit, is I took a look at the McDonald's company. And they are really much more than just a franchise that's selling hamburgers. They are really a real estate magnet. In fact, $30 billion is really real estate that they acquire and then lease back to the franchisees. Now they get to use their intellectual property and the branding. But that's really where they make their money, and about 83% of the revenue is coming from that source versus the stores themselves, which is about 16% of the in-house stores versus the franchise situation. So,
yeah, there are a lot of different companies that will do that as their policy. There are some other companies who would just lease, whether it's their own stores or franchise stores. I think that makes more sense to do it the way McDonald's does it. And they built up a tremendous asset value. And, even if sales go bad, which they're not likely to, but even if they do, they still have something to fall back on. They could make some money on that inventory of real estate that they have. So, hey, I wanted to ask you, what in general is happening with you? I know we've known each other for those full 12 years that you've been with the company, but what's happening to you lately? Because we kind of go on different tracks. I'm doing more development work, even though the last couple of deals were regular deals of existing inventory. But what are you doing these days, and how are you feeling that the market is responding?
The commercial market is really exploding in a lot of different ways in a positive way. I'm seeing a lot of activity, especially in the industrial sector, and I'm beginning to see some upticks in the retail sector as well. So what I've decided to do, Hal, there's a number of different ways to organize your business. And at one point in time, I was listing properties. But now I'm leaning more towards being a client representative. And in fact, that's been working out pretty well because a number of clients have been referring me to other clients. And that's really the best referral that you can get versus going out and acquiring clients on your own. Mm-hmm. And, for example, one of the clients that I'm looking at now has a 1031 exchange and has decided to take a look at various properties on the market. He took a look at residential family situations. He took a look at clients that have listings for malls, strip malls, and things of that nature. But one of the things I introduced him to was the CVS model. And so we found a location that has a CVS, and the thing that really makes this interesting is they have 18 years remaining on the lease, which is guaranteed by corporate. So if the lessee is not successful in the business, they still get to collect the revenue. The thing that really makes it interesting, it's a absolute triple net lease, so they don't have to worry about the roof, the grounds, the structure of the building, any of that. All they have to do is sit back and collect the rent, and it's a beautiful model.
Yeah, well, that is a very, very common thing. Anybody who's looking to make investments, that's an easy way to go. It's called net lease properties, and they're usually pharmacies or things that are very, very stable, categories that are very stable. And there are companies, real estate companies, that specialize in them. I think there's one in Massachusetts called Deerfield Partners or something like that. And there are many, many others around the country. But they have an inventory of those things. And if somebody's doing a 1031 exchange, which if the audience doesn't know what a 1031 exchange is if you sell a property and you want to avoid tax, you try to roll over to another property. You have, I think it was 45 days to make a decision after the sale of the first property. And then you have and you identify a property or properties that you want to buy. And then you have 6 months to actually close on that property. If you don't close, you owe the tax on the first property. So it's a very, very good tool to have those hanging around. If you can't find a property, you can always do a net lease,
And it really helps from the client who's trying to avoid paying the capital gains, which is really the way that
Well, they're not really avoiding it, just like putting it off.
They're deferring it.
Yeah,
yes.
Right. Which is a great thing. Now I hear that they're talking about possibly tinkering. The government is possibly tinkering with that 1031. And that might not be a good idea.
Yeah, I've been hearing the same thing. I'm not sure exactly what direction they're going to go.
I was hearing that they might even take it out and not have it anymore.
All the way.
But again, that's talk. There's no definite resolution on that. So we'll have to wait and see. But it would not be a good thing because investment in commercial real estate or any kind of real estate really depends on that. A great deal.
Certainly does. And so we're in contract now, I'm happy to say. Mm-hmm. It's a $4.6 million deal, so I'm very happy that it's moving in that direction. I want to share something with you, Hal, that I've never experienced before. So I'm working on a lease in Old Saybrook. There's a shopping center that has about 164,000 square feet of retail space, which includes a Walmart, a Stop and Shop, and a number of other stores in this various situation. So the thing that really was interesting to me when we were negotiating the deal, they only have 2 spaces available. One of them was 1,800 square feet, and the other one was 1,300 square feet. And I have a smoothie shop that is looking. This will be the 6th one that's looking at this location. And so we were negotiating to get a longer term up front for free rent. And so one of the things that the client came back and negotiated, which again, I've never seen before, normally when you sign a lease, you pay the security deposit and the first month's rent, whether it be 2 months security or the first month's rent, whatever it is. Mm-hmm. And in addition to that, you generally have a personal guarantee on many of these things because they want to be able to go after your personal assets should you not be able to perform on the lease. Not only did he not have the personal guarantee in the lease, but instead of giving us the additional time that we asked for, he said to the client, you don't need to pay the upfront security deposit, and you pay the first month's rent, after you've exhausted the free time period that you received. And I've never seen this before in anything that I've negotiated.
Well, retail has gone through a school of hard knocks lately. Not only has the problem with online selling, e-commerce eaten into it, but I should really step back. It's eaten into it, but a lot of people think that it's eaten up big chunks of it. But the last I heard, it was like 15% of the total sales. In other words, the e-commerce. And the balance was the regular stores, malls, whatever it might be. And so that really isn't a big bite, but it's supposed to go to, let's say in 5 years, it'll go to maybe 25% of the total sales. So that would be much more of a bite. Retailing was overbuilt prior to this incursion of online retailing. So it was vulnerable to begin with, okay? And so it's getting a settling down. Things are starting to work. And what is happening is, very interestingly, the e-commerce retailers like Amazon are starting to come over into the hard retail locations and establishing their own showrooms and some sort of a hybrid type of way of actually showing their product in a setting, in a real setting, and then of course having the ability for people to walk away with the actual product, which they can't do right now. They have to ship. So it's changing, and it will morph into something that will be beneficial for both e-commerce and for regular commerce in terms of retail outlets. So I see this as having some legs in the future that it doesn't have right now. It's kind of wobbly in the legs right now, but it's getting there. And I think things will look very, very much different in a couple of years from now.
Well, that's an interesting concept, and I'm wondering, what is the future of strip malls or these large centers that are like we have the Danbury Mall here. Mm-hmm. What is the direction that you see happening in that area? Are they going to move towards a living center where you can have residential, including restaurants and other things within that? Is it possible?
Well, I can talk a little bit about the mall thing because I was working on the deal with a Class A mall. And what is happening there is that the department stores are either going out or they're scaling down. That leaves big holes when you have other tenants that rely on those draws of the various anchor tenants. They hurt as well. However, what is happening is that the Class A malls are going to survive. The Class B and C malls, a lot of them are going to die, and they're going to be reconverted into something else. But Class A, they've been doing everything from office to medical to entertainment. In one case, I was talking about a car dealer. I mean, there's all different kinds of combinations. Residential. A lot of them are looking at residential, sort of like one-bedroom apartments for young people, for young professionals. And that way, they don't pose a problem to the town because they don't have to educate a lot of people. But they're putting on their thinking caps, and they're coming up with alternate ways of marketing the Class A malls. Now, as far as the strip centers are concerned, if you recall, and it wasn't that long ago, maybe 5-10 years ago, if you got a listing on a strip center, it was like gold. It was like money in your pocket. Not the case anymore, unless it perhaps has a grocer. A grocer is a great
you need those anchor tenants in there in order for it to make sense.
And grocers are steady,
long-term leases.
Yeah, right. And they're very steady, and they provide a lot of stability to the other tenants as well. So everything changes. Look at industrial, right? Industrial, a couple of years ago, was leasing between $5 and $9 a square foot, triple net, right? Now the people can't get enough of industrial. It's a hot topic. That and multifamily is the two hottest topics in commercial real estate.
And speaking of industrial, I have a client right now that's looking for about 16,000 square feet, and we've been looking in Fairfield and New Haven counties to find a warehouse that's going to work for them. I found about 6 different ones after going through the entire list to make sure that I got the criteria that she was looking for. And I found a couple of them, and so then I made the phone calls. Not only are they not available, but they have 6 and 7 offers on these various warehouses. The ones that we're looking
you
at.
You never saw that in the past.
For sale. So, so at 7 offers, my client's saying, well, I'm not going to be involved in going into a bidding war to acquire this. And so I'm still in the market looking to try and help her to find the right product that has loading docks, drive-in doors, and can accommodate the use that she has, which is also the other challenge.
That gets back to what we were talking about before, and that is e-commerce is trying to get closer and closer to the consumer. So they have regional warehousing. They have last 30 days or something like that housing, which is really up close and very local. And they're basically becoming closer to the consumer because they have to. And that's why that other trend of e-commerce retailers opening up in malls or in strip centers or wherever it might be is taking place too. Again, trying to bring that supply chain closer to the customer is helping the industrial, because industrial has the high ceilings, they have the loading docks, the whole thing, you know.
And not only that, you take a look at what's happening in our market in Connecticut. There's a lot of people in New York and other areas that are now migrating here to Connecticut. You know, COVID's caused some challenges in that market. And they not only buying residential, which, as you know, is on fire. Yep. Many of the residential properties are going 20, 30, 15, 20% above the asking price. So that market is completely taken off. And as a result, many of the manufacturing companies or companies that are looking for warehouses now also looking in Connecticut, which has created the challenge for properties that are not as available as we'd like to have them on the marketplace today.
I saw an article just recently, like in the last week, about our region and people who are trying to find apartments, and they can't find them. I mean, it's like incredible. They had a whole front page article on this thing saying, you know, somebody has tried all different types of towns in the area, all different types of apartments, and they just cannot find what they're looking for.
Which is really great for you, because you have land that you're selling that is, you know, multifamily dwelling kind of possibilities, and maybe you want to...
Well, you know, that's funny, though, because last year... let me go back 2 years. 2 years ago, I started to get heavy into development, and especially into multifamily and even single-family development. And at that time, I started to put together a lot of deals. And it takes years, not months, to put these deals together, by the way. And so my pipeline was getting full. And then 2020 hit. The pipeline went sideways. Nothing happened. In fact, one deal I had, which was a sizable deal, I think it was for 112 apartments, the guy that was going to go to contract very, very within a week or so gets the coronavirus.
Ooh.
And he got it really bad, and he was laid up for like about 2 months.
Oh.
And when he came out of it, he was like a whipped man. He didn't want to even touch anything that was going to give him a hard time in terms of all the work that was ahead.
We're happy that he came back and they was able
we're
to
happy
survive.
he came back, but he was gone as a buyer. It's funny because after the first of the year, after this vaccination thing started with the new thing that they came up with, things changed. And all of a sudden, people who were not even looking at these things became interested because they know that there's a backup in demand on this. Of course, there were certain things like the cost of lumber going out through the roof, but that's settled down now. And so where I had no activity during 2020, I'm up to my neck with activity right now. And some of these deals are going to happen. Now, in the meantime, I've been able to sell a couple of actual properties that are already built and leased or whatever it might be, which helps for the transition, because as I said, it takes a while to put these deals together, not only to get them approved, but then to get them financed afterwards to build, because we're talking, what, $35-40 million on an average one for build out. So it's good to have the regular business, the industrial, the retail, the office, whatever's out there in the meantime.
See, if you specialize in a certain area, that's where you can begin to see some of the benefits. But at the same point, if you specialize in a certain area that's not hot right now and you're not doing some of the other things, you need to be able to continue to feed yourself, so to speak. So it's nice to have a number of different areas.
Well, you and I have been in the business for a long time, and we've done just about everything, right? You've done all of the categories, and it's not only office, retail, industrial, and land. It's things like hotels and all the other things that have to do with commercial real estate. And so you know how to do it. So if you're specializing in a certain area and things get a little slow in that area, you can pivot.
That's exactly what I've been doing. So even though retail is a challenge, I've been working with a couple of companies that want to do retail kinds of things. I'm working with a franchise person right now. I'm working with a Dunkin' Donuts that's looking for a spot that has a drive-through capability. So there's things happening in retail. The challenging market that I still see even today is office. You're not sure exactly what's going to happen in the office category. I've had some people that have been looking at office buildings, and that's a really tough market right now.
It's tough because it's uncertain. Nobody knows how much is going to change in terms of working in an office 5 days a week, or working in office 2 days a week or 3 days a week, and commute and working at home the rest of the time. And people who don't want to work in the office are portable in the sense that they can go to a company that will allow them to do a lot more work at home. So nobody knows where that's going.
No, they don't. And the fact that Pfizer now has had full approval, a number of the companies, even prior to that, have been mandating that employees get vaccinated and that they want them to come into the office. So there may be some change moving in a different direction now, that some of the companies are saying to their employees, we want you to come back to the office. Delta may have thrown a little wrench into that, because I think we were well on our way to moving in the proper direction until Delta started with COVID. And I'm now hearing Lambda and Kappa, they're giving them Greek names. So there's others that haven't come out yet that could create a challenge. So it's still an uncertain market from what's happening from a COVID standpoint.
I heard that if we can get through the winter okay, that early 2022 should be okay. We might be cleared. But who knows? Who knows? This thing has to burn out eventually, because too many people have had it, Even the variants they've had. So you're building up a lot of antibodies, and so it's just like the thing back in 1917-18. That Spanish flu. I mean, that they had 2 stages on it. The first stage, they thought it was over. Then they got hit with the second stage, but then it was gone. So who knows? But I'm hopeful. I really am. I think we're in a far better place than we were a year ago. That's for sure. And one of the things you were saying about being a buyer's broker rather than a listing broker. There's something to be said about listing brokers, though. I know that you, as a buyer broker, you get referrals and it leads to other business. But as a listing broker, let's say you have a property and you show it, and it's not quite the property that somebody wants, but you get to know them and know what they're looking for, and you can pick up some extra business through being a listing agent.
That certainly works well if you have clients who are sophisticated, and many of them are now, and they're going to the websites themselves and finding these properties, and now they're dealing with you as the listing broker.
Right.
And I do have some listings as well. But I like the idea of being able to take a client, and I have a number of them now that I'm working with. In fact, you mentioned about having a book of business, and I'm pretty solid right now. I'm very thankful for that. But there's something to be said for a client that you're now taking to various locations that is looking for something, and now you have the buyer in hand, with the representation agreement also in hand. So that has been working out very successfully now for me, and I really appreciate that. So there's a lot to be said for having listings and then taking those clients and transverting them or converting them to actual people that you're now working with to find property. Yeah. And so now here you are now doing the representation side of the equation.
But the other good thing about having a listing is that if you don't find somebody to buy that, some other broker may find someone, and he has to come to you.
Because you have the listing.
Because you have the listing. So you're going to make half of the commission, at least, right? The problem is that times change, and if you're on the buyer side and you have a buyer who's looking for a hot category like you were talking about, industrial, and you can't find anything, it might be nice to be on the other side and have the listing.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Especially in the industrial sector.
Right.
And again, it's been a challenge finding that property, but it's nice to have somebody who is looking, and if you keep your eyes to the screen and your ears to the rails, you can pick up what's happening in the market and hopefully find the property that they're looking for before it gets snapped up in the market.
Yeah.
I think this has been a good interchange. I like the going back and forth that's been taking place, and I found it very entertaining and very informative.
Well, I'm glad you did, because I'd like to do more with you.
Thank you. Hal, it's been a pleasure.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Likewise, Norman. And as I said before, you've been a long-time friend, a good friend, and I'm very, very happy to do these with you.
Oh, thank you. And you know how I feel about your family. And so thank you very much, Hal.
Okay, thank you.
All right, bye-bye.
You don't feel like